It's Tuesday, the 26th of April, 2022. Welcome to the Fast Five by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Amyler.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, we've got 5 stories to get through 5 minutes, so let's jump straight in with story number 1. And Australians are dumping fixed-rate home loans as banks push up interest rates ahead of critical inflation figures this week, which could well trigger a jump in the official cash rate.
Wow. Well said. That's pretty much this week in a sentence, Michael.
So we could just stop the podcast right there, really, couldn't we?
We could, but I like the Fast Five, so let's keep going.
Okay, carry on.
Inflation figures due out tomorrow are set to hit around 4.5%. That's a 14-year high, putting pressure on the federal government and the Reserve Bank to do something about the cost of living. Already, homeowners are doing something themselves, moving from fixed rates to variable rates. There was a point last year when almost half the home loans being written were for fixed rates. That's now back down to 25% and trending lower. The reason? Banks have lifted fixed rate loans. Late last week, National Australia Bank lifted its fixed rate loans for the 4th time this year. It's not alone on that. The other banks have done something similar. Some fixed rates, for example, a 4-year loan, are now more than double what they were a year ago. Variable rates will start rising when the Reserve Bank lifts the official cash rate. With inflation figures coming out tomorrow, there's a chance, just a chance, that could happen next week, though most people think it will happen early June.
All right, on to story number 2, Sean, and please tell me you have some good news for us about petrol prices.
Well, I do. Look, the economic outlook globally isn't that good at the moment. And the problem is that the US wants to hike interest rates and there's fears of a recession at some point in the future, all sorts of COVID problems in China, increasingly in some of the large cities like Beijing at the moment. That means that zero COVID policy means lockdowns, etc. The kind of silver lining here is that investors think demand for oil won't be as strong as it's been. Therefore, the price of oil has fallen back below $100 a barrel. And when the price of oil goes down, so too does the price of petrol. So the good news in all the bad news in the economy, Michael, at least the global economy, is that petrol prices might be on the way down. Let's hope so.
Yeah, hope so. Now, story number 3, Sean, we mentioned yesterday that typically on Anzac Day, the election campaign, it effectively takes a formal break because war and remembering our fallen soldiers should be apolitical. But, of course, there were still a few comments made.
There were, but, all in all, it was a bit of a truce between the two parties. Prime Minister Scott Morrison was in Darwin for the dawn service. He was joined by Deputy Opposition Leader Richard Marles, who's standing in for COVID-afflicted leader Anthony Albanese. Given what's happening in Ukraine and last week's security pact between the Solomon Islands and China, the services certainly gave Polly some sort of opportunity to campaign just a little. Prime Minister Scott Morrison yesterday talked about the arc of autocracy from Beijing to Moscow. Defence Minister Pete Dutton was typically more blunt, saying the only way to preserve peace is to prepare for war. Mind you, opposition defence spokesperson Brendan O'Connor pretty much agreed with him.
Yeah, and wasn't it good as well to see 20,000 people at the Australian War Memorial for the Anzac Day service yesterday morning? Yeah,
it was back to normal. It was fantastic after 2 years of COVID-affected ceremonies. 2UP was back, marches were back. It was great.
All right, now on to story number 4, Sean. Australia's 2 big energy companies, Woodside Petroleum and Santos, haven't done so well in the latest rankings of preparedness of oil and gas companies for a low-carbon world.
And that's bad news for investors, notwithstanding the huge amount of cash those companies are pushing out at the moment. The Bloomberg New Energy Finance's ranking of 41 global oil and gas producers around the world have Woodside at 29 and Santos at 36. The thing about energy companies is that they will have to transition to a carbon neutral world eventually. It is inevitable. The companies globally that rank highest and the ones that shareholders like are the ones that have good plans to transition and have started on the road, even if they still dig up plenty of fossil fuels. In the Bloomberg rankings, Shell is number 1, France's Total Energy and Spain's Repsol are 2 and 3. Santos and Woodside are nowhere to be seen. They need to change something there.
Yeah, certainly do. All right, story number 5, last one for today, Sean, and how about this? Ferrari has been having a pretty good time of it recently, not least because of their success in F1, but the company's had to recall thousands of supercars. What's going on?
Yes, and that's triggered a big drop in Ferrari share price. As you say, they've had a good time of it, though, in the last few days with the loss in Italy, the home of Ferrari in the F1, as well as this crisis, it probably hasn't been so good. There are problems with Ferrari's braking system. Now, I'd imagine that's fairly important in a Ferrari to have good brakes.
Yeah.
It's recalling its 458 and 488 models. Doesn't affect me, Michael. Probably not you either. Still, Ferrari and brakes. I think they need to be good.
Yeah, probably need to work on that one. All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 26th of April, 2022. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, then you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.